there's a lot of focus on data consumption at the, at the manager level or at the decision maker level. But then that language doesn't get translated at the, data producer level of people who are creating and generating that data. And I think that's where that language has to be the common language of conversation.
If we can work with the with staff teams and saying why data is necessary, because it works on various levels. It's data is really good for the health and care journey of the person, but it's also good in projecting and predicting forward, and also for general data as well. So that's the thing I think we've got to bear in mind, and staff teams have to know that, because then they will engage. Oh yes, this is important, not for the person that I'm caring for and supporting, but also for to create a better system as well. So if they feel part of that, and I think we can do that with data, be inclusive on that.
When we're not talking to staff teams about why we need data, there isn't that sort of impetus or understanding about the importance of having really good quality data. People are more likely to sort of fill things in quickly and to not check.
What we really need to do is make sure that we're collecting data once and then sharing amongst many, because when we do that, we avoid the duplication issues that occur all the time.
That's one of the key challenges for our sector as well, not knowing what is the single source of truth.
I think for me, it's just really thinking about what behaviours you want to drive from the data. I think we've launched a lot of data in the business, and it's almost too much to handle. And then it's some people are looking at bits of data in some places, some are looking at other places, and actually I think it's really about focusing people's attention onto the things that are really, really meaningful. And it's how you do that in a sensible way, because it's like I said at the beginning, there's so much that you could look at.
There's a interesting little law called Goodhart's law, which says when a target becomes a measure, it loses its efficacy, because it's people find a way to. We've seen that with larger data sets in like the NHS, where data has been manipulated to reach a measure target, because that triggers certain incentives, behaviours, etc. So it really is important that when we set targets with measures and data, that we think about round and discuss whether they're the right targets to set, or they will disincentivize people to work properly.
And I think one thing that might not be mentioned yet that underpins a lot of it is ownership, getting business teams to own the data. So I work as part of IT, but across the business, and it's all very easy to say, well, that's IT. Like, no, like, it's your data, you're the expert. So it's empowering them to take ownership, which will then let them set the correct targets, which will then get them to, like Kelly was saying, if they stepped out their business process from the data being entered to where the data needed to go, to who it needed to go to, the quality of data, all of that would just pin together.
But not IT who owns the data, IT is providing the infrastructure on which the data sits. It should be, the data created with producers and then eventually the consumers who are actually the data owners. So identifying as part of the process flow, what process will create which data, or what process would be taking which data as an input, and then how does that data flow in an organization, what the ownership of that data at different aspects of its flow. I think that's critical.
And I don't think there is enough data education in general, even starting at the school level. People are finishing, high school or sixth form, they starting to go to work and they don't have the basic knowledge about data, which is actually everywhere now. Whatever job probably you want to work in, you need that basic. So that my experience is I've learned brilliant stuff. I've learned some basic stuff that should be introduced, but sometimes it's hard to change.
Data fluency is something that should be part of the induction process, at least when people join our sector. if they have not been trained before as part of the school curriculum.
Data security or cybersecurity, I think, can still sound really scary to a lot of people, especially when talking about digital systems. But you know, the reality is in social care is that the only fines that have ever been received for breach of data protection legislation are actually around paper data. Like, using technology doesn't, I mean, there's more and different risks, but it staying on paper isn't actually a way of avoiding those kind of risks at all. So there's a lot of support out there. We have the Better Security, Better Care program, which, if people aren't aware of, is a completely free support offer, which has got a national support team and also regional and local support teams to cover the entirety of England. We're working really closely on that with the Department of Health and Social Care's cyber policy team and the National Cyber Security Centre as well. But you know, I think also data security goes back to sort of what we've been talking about here in terms of data overall. If we know why we're collecting the data, you know, if we have a good track of what we collect, why we're processing, then you're meeting your legislative and regulatory obligations as part of your standard processes of work. So it shouldn't be kind of kept to one side. It's part of the overall, if you know the data you have, if you know who's collecting it and why you're collecting it and what, and that's entire process, it should be just part of a good culture around data in the sector.